Nick Huber made $25 million by trolling people on Twitter. Nick went from running a college moving company to owning $200 million of real estate and over 10 cash flowing companies, all off the back of his now 300,000 Twitter followers. But how?
I look at Twitter as a funnel, okay? All of my media is a funnel, and at the very top, it's like, how can I reach the most amount of eyeballs?
In this episode, Nick gives his exact process to building a following, how he leveraged Twitter to raise hundreds of millions of dollars, and his risk-free blueprint to becoming a billionaire by 50. If you want the simplest path to getting rich, then this episode is for you. Welcome to Money Talks.
Money Talks, let's keep it real.
Welcome to Money Talks. Today we got Nick Huber, Mr. Sweaty Startup, king of self-storage and hot takes. So first of all, congrats on all the success.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's the Spark Notes. I mean, we could go into detail at any level of that journey, but yeah, it's been the moving company in 2011. A couple years later, we did student storage and moving. And a couple years later, we had 25 major colleges in 12 states and a little over $2 million in revenue with 4 or 5 full-time employees and then a lot of part-time employees. 2015 is when we leveraged some cash that we had into a commercial real estate project, raised a little bit of money from family and friends, built a building from the ground up, and spent $2.9 million all in on that project. And we still own that building today. It's worth about $11 million. So that's been a real life-changing amount of money just in that one deal. And we've used some of the proceeds from refinances to start to buy more buildings. Ran out of capital from my network in 2019. So we had bought a couple buildings on our own, small buildings, but I couldn't go out and raise any more capital. And real estate, as you know, is a really capital intensive project, undertaking. But then I started tweeting. A friend of mine told me to get on Twitter, and that's where the deal makers hang out. And I didn't believe him at first. I was like, Twitter is where people go to argue about politics and get mad about things that don't matter. Why would I ever care about getting on there? But he insisted and said, Nick, this is where deal makers hang out. Trust me, there's some communities on there around small business and real estate investing. So I got on and I kind of approached it with a radical openness that you don't really see in real estate a lot. Real estate, unfortunately, is kind of a close-knit, tight to the chest where people, they make a lot of money, but they're sure as hell not going to tell other people how to do it. So if you're not from a real estate family or, in a unique situation, it's really hard to learn and to break into the real estate game. But the community was super valuable. I met a lot of people. They, saw how I thought about business because I was being open about my deals on Twitter, and we would set up calls like this and get face to face. And before we knew it, we were able to build an investor list and start buying buildings with outside capital. Closed on 2 of them in 2020. And then 2021 was a massive year where we bought $50 million worth of self-storage that year. Our team went from 6 people to 45 people. And 2022, bought another $35 million worth of storage, raised a lot of capital from investors. And then the real estate market is slow now because of interest rates, and it's a little bit harder of a business to be in. We can discuss that if you'd like. But yeah, here we are. A lot of Twitter followers, and I've kind of been spinning and growing some other businesses on the back of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, I started following your content probably during the pandemic. So probably 3 years ago or something. And yeah, what hit me was just like, I didn't know much about like details of real estate deals back then. And like, I just love learning about like the intricacies of business, which is why I'm doing this Money Talks podcast. And like the way you broke it down was just so refreshing. Like it was like, this is straight up what I did. This is the money that went in. This is the money we're pulling out. And it was your tweet about like refinancing a building and like how you pulled out all this money within a year or something like that. And I was just kind of blown away. Like, man, this is kind of playing the business game at a way higher level than I was.
Yeah. The thing about real estate is that it's unapproachable when you listen to it as an outsider, because there's all these terms. There's, the bankers talk, it sounds like they're speaking Spanish, and the investors talk, and there's all these different terms that they, say to kind of, honestly, we do it to kind of make ourselves sound smart and to kind of keep a tight-knit group. It's kind of sad to say. But if you really get down to the nitty-gritty of how real estate works, it's the simplest business in the world. I mean, you're buying a building for X, you're putting some debt on it, and you're collecting a certain amount in rent, and then you have some expenses on top of that. And that's real estate. I'm kind of the guy where throughout life, I'm going to look at where can I go, especially when it comes to business, where the competition is the weakest. And so pretty early on, I looked at, okay, where are a lot of people who are not that smart making a lot of money? And real estate is like number one on that list. And I'm exhibit A.
Yeah, when I started with my first businesses, like my attitude, which has changed over the years, I used to think like everything's hard, and so whatever you pick, it's going to be hard, and there's nothing that's easier. And I've kind of shifted my attitude now that I see people. For real estate's a great example where it just seems like it actually is easier, and it's just like playing the game on easy mode versus like, owning a hot dog restaurant or something and like trying to run that. And it's just like something that doesn't have the ceiling and takes more work for what you're getting out of it. And like, so that's something I've shifted over the years. So you have now a bunch of different businesses. I've been keeping up with your content. I heard you on a couple podcasts recently talk about Shepherd and RE Cost Seg and some other businesses you've spun up. So like, just as of today, like what are your revenue streams as of right now? Mm-hmm. Or I'd say, assets, revenue streams, companies, your attention, where's it going?
Yeah. So my real estate private equity company it's the not fun business right now because of the interest rate cycle, but it's the business that I know will generate me the most long-term amount of wealth, right? We're buying real estate and we're going to manage it well and we're going to hold on to it for a really long time. It's tax efficient. That's where kind of RE Cost Seg comes in, but it's just a beautiful business for long-term compounding of wealth. What real estate is not great at is like generating a lot of wealth off the bat. It's like really hard to make your initial money in real estate. Most real estate families and big holders of real estate started in entrepreneurship. They started small businesses. So yeah, I've kind of expanded and it turns out when you build a big following on social media, a big newsletter, I got 90,000 people on my email newsletter now, and just a lot of people who, a couple podcasts, the Nick Huber Show and the Sweaty Startup, people who come to me and listen to me talk about business and entrepreneurship. Turns out that those people are generally running companies and buying real estate in general as well. So I've kind of spun a lot of companies like Shepherd. I'm a minority partner, a small investor in Shepherd, but a founding partner in RE Cost Seg and Bold SEO and WebRun and AdRhino and RecruitJet and some of these other companies that I'm excited about growing. But yeah, I guess the revenue streams, number one is Bolt Storage, the real estate private equity firm. Number two is Shepherd, just because it's so large at this point. It's probably a $25 million company. I own a little under 15% of it. RE Cost Seg, I own 45% of, and that's a business that, a couple $100,000 a month of revenue and a team of 26 and growing pretty quickly. About a $10 million business now at this point. Some of the others are still maturing and started in the last 6 months. And as you know, with an agency business and some of these service companies, it takes a little while to get your legs under you, but once you do, it can be pretty good.
Okay, so how are you juggling all these things? Like what's your secret to just like keeping, not only are you running a bunch of businesses, you keep opening more, you keep getting involved in new things, you're doing content, you're jumping on podcasts like this. Like what's your secret?
I think when people see me, they think, oh, there's a guy that's running businesses and talking to customers and a ton of direct reports and a ton of meetings and doing investor relations and inside the business operationally. And that's not really my situation. I am doing one thing really, and it is attracting, hiring, and enabling talent. I'm gathering people together. That's what I'm doing right now. So I have my media company. That's something I do for fun, and I write a lot, and I have a team that helps me post and kind of monitor my social media and all the things that are growing there. But other than that, I am looking for operators. I'm making deals with operators. I am helping them set up and found companies and enabling the talent to get to work and to succeed once they come on board. So I am fully in one mode right now, and that's recruiting and attracting talent and putting them in place and giving them the tools to do what they do best.
So like, how do you not, you're someone who started, like your whole thing is Sweaty Startup. You started with your moving business. Like I'm kind of, I've done similar stuff where it's like, I've never raised any money or done any venture back things or worked at any fancy offices. Like, how do you not get stuck in that phase of like, I'm just a hard worker. I get shit done. Like I'm grinding. How do you kind of keep leveling up?
Yeah, you mentioned something just a second ago that your mindset has shifted from the difference between an easy business and a hard business. And I have as well. Like there's doing business on hard mode, being in businesses that are difficult with a lot of moving parts and low margins and stiff competition. And then there's business as it gets easier. And in my opinion, business is like a combination of three things. It's your capital, it's your time, and it's your network. Okay. Like I have capital now that I can invest in businesses. That relieves stress. I have only so many hours, so my super limited resources is my time. So I got to be really careful about what I do and how I can get the most leverage on my time. But then I have my network and my distribution. And that allows me to do two things really. One, it's attract talent, attract operators, and attract people who want to come on board and follow me in my mission, but also the customers and the distribution that comes with having the network online that follow me and listen to what I do and say. So I have kind of a cheat code to do business now because I have my distribution, I have the ability to attract talent through the same distribution channels, and then also my own capital to start these businesses in a kind of a low stress way. But kind of back to what you said about hard business versus easy business, I just think that business is so much about momentum. It's so much about, like, people think that management and delegation, like business ownership, entrepreneurship is delegation. Like delegation makes up about 90% of it. You're enabling other people to do really good things. And people think that delegation is like something you study, like something you can read about, something that you can analyze, something that you can think about, and something that you can improve upon. In reality, delegation is a muscle that has to be exercised to get better. Like if you were going to try to grow muscles, if you want to put on a bunch of muscle, would you read about lifting weights and study lifting weights and build a weightlifting plan and do this full body composition analysis about lifting weights? Or would you just go to the gym and pick up the damn weight? Like every single time you're going to go to the gym, pick up the damn weight. I got into business and I just dove in. I didn't call myself an entrepreneur. I didn't study entrepreneurship. I dove in and started flexing my muscles and making mistakes and making poor decisions. And I became a better decision maker and I became a better delegator. And business is about momentum. Like you start in the hard businesses, and the harder the businesses generally are, the lower risk they are because there's lower barriers to entry, lower capital, there's more competition. And then you can work your way up to where you have more and more competitive advantages. You find the better businesses, and then kind of the snowball starts rolling down the hill, and you're a better delegator, you're a better manager, and you're a better decision maker. And then business gets easier and easier and easier.
So like, so how do you balance, like you mentioned, kind of just jumping in, just doing the work, putting the reps in, with like planning something so that you're not just doing the low level stuff and kind of elevating? Because that's what I personally have trouble with, and I'm sure a lot of people too, where it's like some weeks I'm like, you know what, I just got to dive in and do the work, and then I take a step back a month later and I'm like, I didn't elevate here because like I didn't plan this properly. Instead of just working, I should have been like planning. But then you plan too much, you're like, well, like, you know, nothing actually gets done. We're just kind of like massaging this kind of idea, and we got to get to work. So what's like the balance?
Yeah, a good way to think about this, and look, there's nuance here. There's a million ways to win in entrepreneurship, but a good way that I frame this and I reframe in my mind is the Eisenhower matrix. Have you heard of the Eisenhower matrix with important and urgent and unimportant and not urgent?
Yeah.
There's four areas where you can spend your time, and two that we need to talk about today, which are like both are important, but one is urgent and one is not urgent. The urgent and important things, imagine like putting out fires. You're playing defense. You're running around doing the work because the work needs to be done now. Like that's where we get caught up in our business. And I've been there and you've been there. And it's, hey, I got to get this amount of work done by tomorrow. And so I'm going to just do it. I have to do it. It's urgent right now. When you start to really grow as an entrepreneur is when you start to work on the stuff that is urgent or not urgent, but important. Meaning this doesn't have to happen now. It could easily be procrastinated, but it's the stuff that's going to help me grow my company and take back my time. This is kind of, if you want to use like a simple reference, it's the football reference. If you're on defense as a business owner, you're running around putting out fires, you're handling problems, your phone's ringing off the hook, and you are just running nonstop to solve things. You're on defense. You are a cornerback, and you're watching the quarterback's eyes, and whatever that wide receiver does, and wherever that ball's going, you are reacting. You have zero control over the play. As a business owner, if you switch to the other side, and you're like, okay, I'm going to take control of my life. I'm going to start to make decisions. I'm going to start to spend time on hiring. I'm going to spend time on sales. I'm going to spend time on training, on delegation. That's when you kind of switch over and you're on offense, and you are then controlling your day. You're controlling your day. You're controlling what's happening. You're controlling what's going on. And that's when things kind of get powerful and you can step out. But as a business owner, it's really hard because when the problems come in, your natural instinct is to tell your employees, get out of my way. I'm going to solve this. Get out of my way. I'm going to solve this because it's easier. You know that you can do it better. You know that there's going to be less issues. You're a better decision maker. You're a better technician inside your business, and you find yourself just working in your business all the time. The hard part of being a good manager and a delegator is when your employee comes to you and says, hey, Nick, I got a problem. And instead of solving that problem for them, you're going to enable them to solve it. And you're going to ask them questions, and you're going to put some pressure on your people to then start to make decisions. I think there's two levels of delegation. One is just tasks. You're delegating tasks for people to do. The second level of delegation is decisions. Okay. Tasks, think of like answering the phone, punching data, making sales invoices, the things that actually need done. And that's maybe 60, 70% of your business. Then there's the decisions that most business owners, they always do the decision making themselves. They're deciding what to charge. They're deciding how to interact with a sales call. They're deciding who to hire, where to put resources. They're making decisions inside their company. When you can really grow and when you really start to leverage your business, your life, and kind of your entrepreneurship journey, skyrockets, is when you can start to delegate some of those decisions so that not everything comes to you inside of your business. You're no longer the bottleneck to make things happen. Problems happen in your business and they get solved by your people, not you.
Okay, like for example, I'm sure you have like, even now with all your different businesses you're launching, like you're probably interested in so many, learning new things, trying new things, launching new things. So I'm kind of like, I'll get off this and I'll be like, I need to go like buy a self-storage facility. Or like the other day I did an episode with the car wash guy and I'm like, oh my God, car washes, coolest thing. But it's like every day there's kind of a new thing like that. And it's just like, how would you tackle that? Like, like I might get off and go like start doing research and looking at biz buy sell for storage facilities and then it's like, you realize like each of these things is literally like a full-time year job if you want to really do it. And you literally cannot do this many things. So how do you tackle things like that? Like you hear something cool. Do you have a person that you just say, hey, like this is your job. Like, look at this opportunity, figure this out?
I think that's such a good point that you just made, because as somebody who's interested in entrepreneurship, and that's me, that's you, that's a lot of people listening, our minds are running a mile a minute. We're curious. We have a lot of curiosity and energy that can go in many, many different directions. And that's part of the reason why we're successful, because we have that curiosity and that excitement about, things that are not exciting to most people. Most humans walking around town are not thinking about how cool it would be to own a self-storage facility. That's guys like me and you and people who are listening to this podcast. But it's so easy to get trapped in this analytical, analyze mindset. And I've fallen into it before. And I think so many people, especially really high IQ people, smart people who, did well in school and like really have an analytical, data-driven approach, they look at entrepreneurship and they think, okay, if I'm going to do this, I got to really learn it. I got to study it. I got to think of what could all go wrong. I got to think of what could all go right. I got to build out my models. I got to build out my business plan. I got to read books. I got to talk to all these smart people. Next thing you know, 3 or 4 months have gone by and nothing's happened. No action has been taken. The difference is guys like you, guys like me, all right, we'll learn enough to be dangerous, and then we're going to freaking jump in the pool. Like we don't need the sunscreen on. We don't need the floaties. We don't need the lifeboat. We're just going to jump in and shake stuff up and get it done. And that's where the folks who fall into the analysis paralysis trap of entrepreneurship, they really, really struggle, because as you know, and as I know, there's so much nuance. There's so many decisions. The first year of starting a business, you're going to have 300 or 400 critical decisions to make, more than one every single day that you got to make. And if you need all the data, if you need certainty, if you need all these different data points, it's damn near impossible to feel comfortable jumping in and accepting like uncertainty. Business is really uncertain. You never know what could happen. So if you're a kind of person who needs a ton of information, entrepreneurship is not for you. But yeah, it's a lot of focus is required. I mean, you gotta get in and you gotta be comfortable doing the freaking work, because business is fun for like 3 days. Business is fun until you gotta go out and interview that person, or you gotta make that sales call that you're nervous for, or you gotta put the suit on and go in and ask for money, or you gotta go fire somebody. Like being a business owner, everybody loves how business owners look on Instagram with their nice cars and maybe even private jets, and like the reward at the end of the tunnel for an entrepreneur. Not many people actually like being an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur is freaking hard. You're solving problems all day. You're dealing with stress all day. You're hiring people, you're firing people, you're having uncomfortable conversations. When the phone rings for me as a business owner, it's not good news. They're not calling me to say, hey, Nick, your service was so unbelievable. I was trying to get a hold of the owner because I'm just so thrilled with how everything went. We know that's not how the world works.
Okay, so that being said, like, how do you pick your spots? Because like I get really distracted. Like, what's the kind of the method to being like, I know I don't do these type of things. I know I don't chase these opportunities. Real estate's been one of those for me, actually, where it's like, I'm super interested. I totally think it's an amazing way to preserve and accelerate wealth. But I'm just sort of like, there's so many people that are like hard in this game, and like, I'm not. And like, until I am, I haven't dove in, because I'm just like, there's no way everything feels like, yeah, I could just go buy a storage facility and just like do, but it's like, it's actually like, if that's not what you're doing, you're going to lose. Like, and I've seen that with like small projects where I'm just like, hey, I want to spin up a clothing line, and that's just going to be like a little fun side project. And it's like, everything ends up being like a really big commitment. So yeah, I'm always trying to figure out like, how do I choose the right opportunities?
And it's so hard. And I think the evolution that I've went on as an entrepreneur is that early in my career, I was saying yes to almost everything. This opportunity sounds great. Yes. Because I was excitable. I didn't have anything to lose. I didn't have a big network yet. I didn't have any capital. I didn't have anything that I could really bring to the table. So when the smallest opportunity came about, I was all for it. I was jumping on it. Then I got a little bit of capital, a little bit of skill. I became an expert at something, and opportunities started to pick up a little bit. And I kept saying yes, and I'd be excited about this opportunity, and I would think about that opportunity. And then I made a little bit more money, got a little bit more successful, built that first project. It was a massive success, learned how to raise money, became an expert on, more things. My network began to grow, and the opportunities accelerated. The velocity of opportunities coming to me just kept accelerating. And that's when I had to kind of shift my entire mindset from yes, 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 to no, 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 no. Early in my career, 21-year-old Nick, who didn't have any skills, didn't have any network, and didn't have any capital, it was very easy to say yes because the opportunities were few and far between. As life progresses, and we talked about business momentum and how you grow as an entrepreneur, the velocity of opportunities accelerated, and the opportunities started coming faster. They started becoming bigger. They started becoming better. And now I spend all day saying no. I get emails all day. Same with you. It's this thing's cool. This investment opportunity, this, potential to take your time here, time there, time here. And I know that I only have 24 hours in a day. Me and every single other human, me and Elon Musk have 24 hours in a day. And I can't do it all. So I got to say no to most opportunities, which is, if you're an excitable person like me, and I know you are, it's difficult to say no, but I think it's the right decision.
And how do you decide? Is it a gut thing? Is it like, do you have like a kind of formula? Or
you said the magic words, decide. I mean, decision making is number one. That's all life is. Like life, where we are, our success level, how happy we are, it's all a result of our previous 10,000 decisions. Every day when we wake up, we start making decisions, and we don't stop making decisions until we fall asleep that night. And in business, it's the same thing. You start a company, you got 500 decisions to make in your first year, and you just got to get better and better and better at making decisions. And just like delegation, decision making is a muscle. Decision making is a muscle, and you can think about making decisions, and you can practice, or you can get out and make decisions. And the best way to do it is make decisions, make lower stake decisions, and you start to decisions. And as those decisions go poorly, you'll learn. And as they go well, you'll learn. And if you start with low stakes decisions in a sweaty startup, in a small business that's hard, in a one of those early businesses in your careers, and you start to work your way up, you can get better at decision making without betting the house. Because I'll tell you the truth, even to this day, I make 500 decisions a year, and 200 of them are the wrong ones. Like that, nobody's perfect at making decisions. I just know I got to get the big ones right, and I got to keep the decisions from having the chance to ruin me. Like that's my goal as an entrepreneur. Now that I have something to lose, is I'm going to make sure that no decision that I could make will ruin me. And if I can just keep making little decisions that are little bets that, okay, none of them are going to ruin me, then good things happen over time, and I become a better decision maker. But there's no magic decision-making formula where you can read a certain book and become a better decision maker. It's all about practice.
What's an example of like a bad decision you made that ended up being bad, that didn't ruin you, but like...
Yeah. So to start a company, you have to decide who you're going to hire, how many people you're going to hire, how much you're going to pay them, what your offering is going to be, what the copyright on your landing page is going to be, what CRM you're going to use, what tools you're going to use. how much you're going to charge for the service, who's going to be taking the sales calls. That's just the example of, the 20 main decisions to start a company. And absolutely some of those are going to be incorrect. The thing about business is that there's no book that like has all the answers. In high school, if we're studying for a math test, we can look, we got a problem here in front of us and the answer is 3 pages back. So if we're studying this algebra problem and we can't figure it out, we're taught to flip 2 pages back and read the section about that problem, and the answer's right there. That's how we are trained in America through the public school system to solve problems. Look them up in the book. There is no book of entrepreneurship with all the answers. There's no book of managing people. There's no book that'll tell you what to do when one of your employees comes to you and tells you that they're suffering from crippling depression and they can't do their job, but they're having a baby next month and their wife doesn't work. There's no book that tells you how to answer or solve those problems. You just got to do your best. And a lot of times there's no right or wrong answer. I look at every decision that I'm making in business as like a why in the road. I'm going down the road and I wake up one day and a decision comes to me. Should I or should I not hire this person? Both the roads may lead to a successful company. Like, this is not a decision that'll make or break me, but one of the roads will lead to better and one of the roads will lead to worse. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of nuance around business to where
like it's hard to look back and say like that was the right thing. That who knows?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is this like if you really zoom out to 1,000 feet and look down at business, and this is kind of a doomsday scenario. I know it doesn't give us a whole lot of good fuzzy feelings inside, but if you look at the decisions that we make with all the people that we're around and where we are in our life, it's impossible to pinpoint what was random chance, what decision was good, what decision was bad. It's really hard to know. So in some ways that feels defeating, but in other ways it's good that you have a little bit of flexibility and some freedom to mess up and still succeed.
Okay, what I love about your content is like you make business and entrepreneurship feel accessible to everyone. Like one of the biggest things, you always just hear from people like, well, I can't start a business because of this. I can't, do this because I don't have this talent. I can't raise money. I don't have the network. And I feel like your content is just like, but you really can, and just shows people like, here are all the things you can do right now with zero upfront cost. And I love that because that's kind of how I see entrepreneurship too. What are like 3 things right now that you think are sweaty startups that people can do to go from 0 to 1? Like obviously there's the classic ones, but like just kind of the best 3 opportunities right now in 2023.
So I think that's a great segue, and I want to collaborate with you because I know you have some answers to that question too, but I want to say a little something first. Most people, most humans, like let's just say Americans, let's just say working aged Americans, the majority, I'd say 60 or 70% have one goal. They have one goal, and that is go to work, do as little as humanly possible to still get paid next Friday. Okay? I'm going to do as little as physically possible to still get paid, meaning I still have a job. And I'm going to go home at 5 o'clock, and I'm going to order pizza, sit on the couch, crack a beer, and watch Netflix. And I'm going to think about what I'm doing that weekend, and I'm going to think about my next vacation day, and I'm going to think about near-term pleasure. They're not making decisions now to maximize the quality of their life 5 years from now. They're making decisions today that maximize the quality of their life today, tomorrow, and potentially next week. Okay? That's the average person. When I started tweeting about my deals, and you mentioned how radically open I was about my deals and how exactly to do them and how to make money, my business partner called me up one night and he's like, Nick, I've been thinking a lot about this. Why are you sharing all this information on the internet? We have nothing to gain. And we're just going to breed a bunch of competition of people who want to do what we do. And I said, Danny, you're right. I could be breeding competition. I could create a whole new wave of real estate entrepreneurs, but I know we're going to meet people, and I have a feeling that nobody's going to want to do this freaking work because it's hard. And I was overwhelmingly correct. Nobody wants to do the freaking work. Everybody wants to think about doing the work. Everybody wants to think about business ideas. And as they study and as they analyze, they get this sense of feeling that makes them feel productive. Okay, they're reading a business book. The moment they order that business book on Amazon, they click buy, that gives them a sense of, ooh, I accomplished something today. Or the second they flip on your podcast, Jesse, and it's like, oh, I'm listening to Money Talks, baby. I'm on. This is it. I'm getting better. Right now, I'm getting better. Then the book comes in and it sits there on their table because they're not even going to do the work to open it up. Okay. I sell some courses online around real estate. People will buy a $2,500 course, and over half the people who buy it will not start the very first lesson.
Damn.
They will not start the very first lesson. That tells you who you're competing against in life today. You're competing against an entire group of people who are doing the bare freaking minimum to live and survive another day. So if you're willing to start a business on the side, do a little bit of work on the weekends, look around your house and say what you have in your house that might be able to start a company, or a skill set if you're in the middle of your working years, and a skill set that you've built at your company that could be leveraged to get some clients of your own and start your own business. If you actually take some steps to do those things, you're going to be light years ahead of anybody else. That's just the sad truth that nobody wants to admit.
I think another thing is cool is that like people, like you always talk about the unsexy businesses, like buying storage facilities is not the most attractive thing to most people, but like you've managed to take that and turn that into a giant social media following and then start cooler and cooler businesses on the top of that. And you actually seem to have a lot of fun doing all this. And you get to like meet a lot of people this, you know, the same way you would if you had like a quote unquote sexy business. And so like, yeah, I think that technology is kind of enabling that for a lot of people where like you actually can take these really unsexy things and build them up to be something that people think is really cool. So
yeah, there's a lot of bad advice around there, around social media, especially when it comes to like starting businesses. And one of those really bad pieces of advice is like do something that you love, start a business that you love. And I just think that is such bullshit advice, because if you're doing business well, it's going to consist of about 5 things. It's going to consist of solving problems, hiring and managing people, you know, selling, you're doing sales of some kind, and a couple others. Like those are the keys to running a company. You're delegating, you're hiring, you're selling, you're having uncomfortable conversations, and you're solving problems. Like any business that's thriving and doing well, that is what you are going to do. Okay? Do you think the CEO of Apple is out designing iPhones and having fun on a computer in Photoshop and, you know, Illustrator building designs of iPhones? No, absolutely not. The CEO of Apple is dealing with people and managing people all day long. So like you have an option as an entrepreneur. You can go after something fun and sexy and something that'll look really cool on your resume, or you can say, okay, what can I do here that gives me the best odds of success, and whatever success means to you. And a lot of people also we can talk about this, they totally miss the mark when it comes to like, what does success mean to me? What does success mean? And let's back in, let's reverse engineer what success means. They'll look at Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is success. Like, that's what I want. I want $1 billion IPO. Elon Musk is success. He's sending rockets to space. That's success. And so they think about, hey, what gives me the best odds of being the next Elon Musk? And that totally misses the mark on, hey, what's best for me and my family as the next goal in my life to accomplish what I want to accomplish? Many times that goal is, hey, I want to make $100,000 a year and work 10 to 20 hours a week. Like that's something that's actually pretty achievable. And you know, let me tell you the truth here. Let me tell you something that nobody wants to hear. Like nobody wants to hear this. Setting those astronomically high goals and worshiping Elon Musk and starting the next giant idea, if you fail, you're off the hook. The odds were against you anyway. Of course, nobody can be like Elon Musk, but I tried. I was a warrior. I tried and I failed. And you get to go to bed at night thinking, man, I did it. You know, look at me. But if you start the next sweaty startup and you go out and try to build a lawn care company or a consulting firm or an agency and you fail, it's on you. It's on you, because there's a lot of other people who have won that have done it and they do it well. So if you fail, it's on you. Yeah. So many people, they get out of college and they're like, hey, what business should I start here? What business should I start? Well, I can set an astronomical goal so that when I fail and I'm in my parents' basement at 35, that was supposed to happen. It's not me. Everybody else failed too. It's not me. Of course, it's just too hard. It was just way too hard.
I would say one of my favorite things about entrepreneurship is that you can be like the 500,000th best entrepreneur in the world and still be a multimillionaire. And there's not many other things in that. Like if you look at basketball players, like if you're not in the top 500 in the world, you're not in the NBA. Tennis, like if you're literally not in the top 100 in the world, you cannot make a living. But like I consider myself a very mediocre entrepreneur, to be honest. Like when I look around and I see people like Elon Musk or like you, I'm like, yeah, but I've still made a lot of money, you know, and like a lot more than I would have with a normal job. And so like, I think that's one of the coolest things about it. But so back to what you were saying about,
should be more like water. Go ahead.
What's that? I
said people should be more like water. Like, hey, entrepreneurs for some reason they have this ego complex, and I am at fault here just as much as anybody else. But imagine we're on a hike and we're going through the mountains, and we look at the tallest, most difficult mountain to get to, and we're like, I want to climb that one. Like, I want to climb that one.
Yeah.
When there's no real reason to say I want to do something really, really hard in business. Like You're right. The 50,000th best real estate investor is worth $10 to $20 million. 50,000 people in America. The 50,000th best person is worth $50 million, more than $10 million. Whereas, like asking a fifth grader, hey, who would you rather play in basketball? Would you rather play against LeBron James, and if you win, you get $1 billion? Or would you rather play against your third grade cousin who's a foot shorter than you, and if you win, you get $1,000?
Yeah.
Let's play against the third grade cousin over and over again.
I kind of grew up seeing business as like, you know, old school business, like you buy something for $1, sell it for $2. And like, I never thought about raising money. I never thought, you know, about kind of the whole venture backed stuff. And then I moved to LA a few years ago, and everybody has, you know, a venture-backed beverage brand and, you know, raise millions of dollars, and they're lighting money on fire, losing tons of money. But that's kind of the way that things operate in San Fran and LA. And like, I'm trying to still figure out, like, part of me is jealous, to be honest. Like you look around and you're like, oh, so they can get all this praise, take a nice salary, you know, go meet all these people and actually just lose money. And then if they win, they have this massive prize at the end where it's not like, oh, I can make a good living. It's like you might have $100 million exit. And if you lose, well, I collected $150,000 salary for a few years, and then I just start the next thing. What are your thoughts on like raising money and all on, you know, venture back stuff? Because I know you're pretty old fashioned, like old school profit too. So
I got to say that I have a lot of friends in venture capital. I have a lot of friends who have succeeded. And part of my distaste and disdain for venture capital is that I am a little bit jealous. Okay, they are gladiators. They are going into an arena. They are forcing their will upon the world. They're against all odds, and they're at battle. Okay, and there's something amazing about that, and it brings the world forward. Like, let's be real. Like, it makes our lives so much better, the fact that those people are willing to go out and do those incredibly hard things. And I respect the hell out of them for what they're doing. But in my opinion, if you're not rich, if you haven't already set yourself up financially for life, a venture capital backed startup is not for you. That's just like, if I look at this unemotionally and I look at the odds of success and what happens and what's the outcome is, unless you're already wealthy, I wouldn't recommend going after that. Why would you try to change the world before you've secured the bag? Like, secure the bag, get rich, and then go change the world.
Yeah. But sometimes I just see, like, I invested in this one company, I do some angel investing, and, you know, they basically after a year and a half, like, closed up shop, but it was like an acqui-hire or something. And like, they got like, and I was like, damn, this thing failed. And they got, the exit ended up being, they just returned money to investors, and the founders made like $1 million or something. And I'm like, that's crazy. You know what I mean? That compared to like, people work really hard for 10, 20 years to build businesses to make $1 million. And then, you know, this guy just started some random thing, went out of business, and still made $1 million. And like, nobody, it seems like that just goes in today's world. And I'm like, damn, maybe I'm missing something.
And I guess there is a lot of advantage to having that experience and going through something so hard, and the people who go into Y Combinator, the people who successfully raise money, like, they have the skills then to go transfer, and they can go get jobs wherever they want, or they could start their next company. So there are a lot of advantages to it as well. I just skew towards the real world and, you know, more sustainable companies.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to shift to like real estate for a second. Do you think real estate's for everyone?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
What do you think most
I-
people, so the average person, like, what should their involvement in real estate be? Should they buy a house? Should they try and invest?
Are we talking like the average American or like the average person that runs in our circles on Twitter and is listening to this podcast? Or do we do both?
Both, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So the average American, absolutely not. No, real estate is like 20th on the priority list behind like making rent next month and not getting their car repoed. Like the average American doesn't have, $500 to pay for a surprise expense. So real estate is not something that's attainable for them. And then I get asked, and then if we switch to like our circles and the people,
Yeah, I guess I meant more like people who have some money and they're like, oh, should I buy stocks? Should I start a business? Should I buy real estate?
Yep. So I get asked all the time, and it's the number one direct message that I've gotten out of the probably 50,000 direct messages that I've gotten on Twitter. Hey, Nick, I want to get into real estate. What advice do you have for me? And my first question is always like, how much cash do you have? How much cash do you have? And they're like, why does that have anything to do with it? And I'll be like, well, real estate is very expensive. And if you don't have $500,000 plus liquid, then in my opinion, real estate is not something that you have any business investing in. Real estate is expensive. You gotta have a lot of cash. There's surprise expenses. There's a lot of maintenance and capital expenses that can come up on a property. There's a lot of risk associated with it, with debt. And frankly, if you got less than 500 grand sitting around in your checking or brokerage account, real estate should not be something that's on your mind at all. I think there's a lot of people who disagree with me. There's a lot of people who have built wealth from nothing in real estate. I don't think real estate is the best way to build wealth. I think real estate is phenomenal. It's really good at amplifying wealth and like preserving wealth and growing wealth once you have it, once you've made money. You look at like who holds all the real estate in America. It's the families that started with small business and entrepreneurship and then needed something to do with their cash. And they put that cash into owning real estate and they just roll the snowball down the hill. So in my opinion, if you have less than 500 grand, go focus on making more money and forget about real estate for now. It's not the best way to grow your wealth.
And do you consider like buying your house that you live in a real estate investment as part of that thing? Or would that come first or would that come after?
That would definitely come first. Put your family in a house that you own first, in my opinion. That's my advice. And I think, yeah, it's an investment. A house is an investment for almost all Americans. Like it's the number one safe harbor and like the place that most Americans have their net worth in is their primary residence. Entrepreneurs, people like me, not so much. Like I look at it as a house as kind of an expense and I'm going to invest my money in income producing real estate assets in commercial real estate or single family or whatever. But yeah, I think it kind of goes in steps. It's like, okay, make the money, make enough money to put down a down payment on a house, put your family in a house or yourself in a house. House hacking is great. Rent the other side. Do all those creative things if you want, but main focus, make more cash until you got $500,000 plus sitting around.
And so you've said that, so you have like $180 million in commercial real estate or something, but you live in a house that you bought for like 280,000 or something like that. What's the thought process behind that? Are you just like, this is all I need? Are you like, is it very separate? Like,
it's just, there's a little bit of nuance around it now. I mean, so first of all, the 100 million plus of real estate that we bought, I don't own it. I've gotten investors. Like I get a cut of the upside, right? So my equity in it is in the single digit millions now. It's not 20, 30 million dollars like it was before the real estate correction here with interest rates. But I bought this house. It had, it's a house in a place that I like to live in. And to pick this house up and move it into a different area of town would cost me 1.5 million probably. And I just don't want to outlay 1.5 million for same functionality. I got 6 bedrooms. I got an office in my basement, got a garage, got, 3,000 plus square feet. And I would rather buy an airplane than get a bigger house. So that's what I'm going to do.
Okay. So with real estate, I feel like in the Twitter echo chamber, like all you hear is like, hey, I did this. It's so easy. I flipped this. I did this. Not from you, just from everyone in general in business, but especially in real estate. It's like, it makes it sound so easy and like everyone is just like making so much money. What's like an example of a real estate deal gone bad, or how could something go bad? Because I really feel like you never hear about how people lose money in real estate. Yeah.
So we haven't heard about it. We haven't heard about it lately because real estate asset values have continued to go up for the past 10 years. So from 2012 to today, to 2022, real estate values only went up. So if anybody got in trouble, if they were poor operators, if they were over levered, they simply sold their asset for more than they had paid for it. So they got a get out of jail free card and they got lucky. The real danger happens when real estate gets less valuable and interest rates go up, and a property that generated, let's say, 50 grand of profit, it's worth $1 million. All of a sudden interest rates go up and it's worth $700,000 instead of $1 million on the open market. And you put $300,000 to buy it and you got $700,000 of bank debt. And then all of a sudden revenue drops a little bit. You lose some tenants, some capital improvement project pops up, and all of a sudden your property is worth less than the amount of bank debt on your property. Okay. That happened a lot in 2008. It's happening right now in the background. We're going to see these stressful situations pop up all over the place over the next year if interest rates stay here, which I think they are going to, and it gets ugly. So commercial real estate it's not like homes where if you buy a home, you're fixed into a mortgage for 30, 25, 30 years, even 15 years, fixed mortgages, right? In commercial real estate, it's all 3, 5, 7-year mortgages. And a lot of those mortgages have balloons on them, meaning at the end of those rate terms, you need to refinance with somebody else. You got to get debt with somebody else. That's called a balloon. A maturity is what it's called. The loan matures and you have to pay it off. So in 2008, when real estate values went down 40%, it wasn't necessarily cash flow that bankrupted a lot of real estate investors. It was the fact that they bought a deal in 2007 with 3 or 5 year debt on it, okay? And that debt is in place for 3 or 5 years. There was a bank crunch, much like the bank crunch that's happened now. Regional banks were trying to clear up their balance sheet. They couldn't have loans on their balance sheet. So when that 3 or 5 year period was up, they said, hey, I'm not extending your loan. You need to pay me back. Like, this loan's mature. But the debt market was tight everywhere and nobody could get debt anywhere else. So the real estate investors just couldn't replace the debt that they had, even though the deals were cash flowing, and they lost everything. So that is how a real estate market collapse happens. And it takes a long time because these loans are 3, 5, 7-year loans. So it can take 3, 5, 7 years until a real estate investor gets in trouble, because they're not really in true trouble until that loan matures and they're forced to pay it all back.
So what's your prediction? Do you think what part of the cycle are we in right now? Are we heading towards that? Is it the time to wait on the sidelines with cash? Is it time to try and get into real estate?
I think it's a great time to try to get into real estate because there's a revolving door of people getting out of real estate right now. Like the amount of people in real estate is shrinking fast. And you talk to brokers and business people who back in 2009, 10, 11 built their careers. It's because 2012, they woke up and there were 30% of the people in real estate that there were in 2007 when transaction volume was high. So if you get in real estate now and you start learning it and you're underwriting deals and you're being responsible, 100%, that's a good decision in my opinion. Is now a point to get aggressive and start buying real estate aggressively? Maybe not. Is now a good time to buy a property if you find a clear operational advantage and you can buy something and make it more valuable and increase cash flow? Yes, sure. There's a lot of nuance around it. I'm in the business of protecting my investors' capital. I have built a net worth and a portfolio that's worth a lot of money, and I'm kind of in wealth preservation mode. So I don't get paid the big bucks to like be bullish and, oh, let's go buy, like everything's going to be amazing. I don't get paid good money and fees to do that for my investors. I get paid good money and fees to protect the downside and make sure that we don't lose any properties. So I'm spending my time and energy right now kind of thinking about the downside and how to protect against it. I'm not smart enough to know what'll happen, but I just have to think about, hey, this is the possibility. This is the range of possibility of what could happen here. I got to protect every scenario. And I got to make sure that in any one of these scenarios, my investors' money and my money is going to be okay.
Yeah. I had a couple of real estate deals that I almost did the last couple of years. And then like now there's like checking accounts that pay you essentially 5% on cash that are like fully FDIC insured. And I've never been about the passive income thing or any of that. Like I've literally ignored it my whole life because I've been like, it's all just like, until you're really rich, none of that shit matters. Like, and I'm talking like 10 or $20 million or 50 million. Like, so I've literally ignored it my whole life. And now I have some cash in one of those accounts and I'm starting to see like, it's actually a substantial amount monthly that it's paying. And I'm starting to come around like, I should just like try and get as much cash in those accounts, or maybe now's the time for real estate. Like, what do you think when there's accounts that literally pay you 5% in cash? That's, flexible. You can take it out anytime. is it still worth like some of these real estate deals I looked at?
I got a lot of my cash sitting in treasuries as well, because risk-free rate of return now is 5%, and risk-free rate of return on money 3 years ago was 0. So obviously people are going to chase real estate and chase any yield they can get when interest rates are 0 and you can't get anything for your cash when it's sitting around. Times are totally changed now. So that's another factor that will bring the value of real estate and all assets down.
Yeah.
Because you can take 0 risk. Like real estate's a risk, small business is a risk, any asset is a risk. And you can take 0 risk now buying government, bonds and treasuries for 4, 5, 6% right now. So why would I take the risk of buying real estate that yields me 4, 5, and 6%? So that's just definitely another factor that'll bring asset prices down, in my opinion, if these interest rates stay up.
Yeah. Okay, I want to shift to the brand building Twitter stuff. So you pretty much go viral all the time. I would say you're a personal brand genius. I want to start by reading some of your viral tweets, and I just want to discuss. So here's a few of @SweatyStartups viral tweets. So I've never met a mentally stable vegan. People over 35 who are unmarried generally aren't emotionally stable. Anybody taking college classes after 30 years old is likely incompetent. Have you ever met anybody with blue or purple hair who has their shit together? There's nothing in the world that turns off women more than video games. So how much of those tweets they're obviously not real estate related, but they work and you know what you're doing. So how much, when you're tweeting this kind of stuff, is it your beliefs or is it just like this is a tool to get eyeballs?
I think it gets so much engagement because it strikes a chord with people. So like there's a hint of truth to all these, even though there's tons of examples where that stuff is bullshit, right? The founder of Twitter, one of the greatest entrepreneurs of all time, is a vegan and had purple hair for a really long time, Jack Dorsey. Okay. And I don't know if he's married either. So yeah, obviously there's a ton of exceptions to those rules, but the coincidence with those rules is always a little bit, just fun to think about. And in my opinion, like I'm a guy that doesn't understand some things, and I don't understand anybody who gets angry at strangers on the internet. Like let's just put ourselves in the we're putting ourselves in the situation. We're at our house, we're with our family, we're living where we want to live, we're working a job we decided to take, we're somewhere in the world, and we are doing exactly what we want to be doing at that moment, and we get on the internet and we go to a place and we decide to get upset, like angry at something a guy named Nick Huber said on Twitter. I have zero patience for people who engage in that kind of behavior. It's absurd. So naturally, just like how I would pick on my sister because she'd get really riled up about what I thought was nothing when I was 6 years old, like I'll poke the bear a little bit on Twitter for fun. I have a sense of humor. Almost all of it's a joke, but also it's part of the, like, to get more serious for a second, it's like people think I got big on Twitter and 300,000 followers on Twitter by being the self-storage guy. That's not true. That is not true at all. I could tweet nothing but storage and I'd have 10,000 or 20,000 followers now. And of course my following would be valuable. I'm not saying it would not be valuable. You're the deck
building guy now.
Yeah, Twitter won't let me change my name back, unfortunately. I didn't realize that it makes you re-verify, so I'm going to be the deck building guy for a couple of weeks now, so that's a bummer. But when I look at Twitter as a funnel, okay? All of my media is a funnel, and at the very top, it's like, how can I reach the most amount of eyeballs? The most amount of eyeballs, so that some of those people, and the way Twitter works is if you have a tweet, and the one about deck building got, 7 million impressions. When you have a tweet get 7 million impressions, 7 million eyeballs, the HOA one got like 35 million impressions on it. That's a lot of people clicking your tweet to see the responses. And if you've noticed how the algorithm works on Twitter, when you click a tweet to see the response, it'll show you you'll see more of that person's tweet because the algorithm assumed that person was giving you what you wanted to see because you engaged with it, you clicked it. So when I do these funny things, other people also find it entertaining that people get irate on the internet. So they'll click on my tweet and they'll just read the idiots responding and getting all upset. And then I know that a lot of smart people have now clicked on my tweet and engaged with it. So the algorithm will show them my next 3 or 4 tweets. Okay. So when you have that 6 million impression tweet, I know that the algorithm has my profile basically charged up and it's going to show me to more people. And I've noticed that it's between 3 and 4 times as many people will see my next 4 to 5 tweets. Okay. So I'm going to get a multiplication of my next 3 or 4 tweets. So we're going to work our way down the funnel. And my next tweet will be a pretty general business or life advice. That's a pretty deep thought. It's a lot of value that I'm trying to add. I'm trying to make smart people think deeply about a certain topic. Okay. That's my strategy from there. So I'm going down the funnel a little bit more. So I got the tweets to piss people off. The next tweets after that are going to be value add that less people care about. Obviously, all the woke idiots that are getting pissed about me hiring foreign labor, they're not going to give a crap about my business advice. But the entrepreneurs will, and they're going to follow me, okay? Then I get even more intricate, and I'm talking about a storage deal. And I'm giving the profit and loss of a storage deal. And guys like you, Jesse, the deal makers, are going to then read that, and they're going to think it's fascinating. Oh my gosh, this guy's telling me how this business works. I'm going to follow him. Then they listen to my podcast. They get on my email newsletter, and they just work their way down the funnel. So at the top of the funnel, we have 60 million people seeing a tweet of mine every month. That's about how many impressions I get. Next row is I have, a business tweet that's going to get maybe 125,000 impressions. A little bit further down the funnel is my newsletter. I have 90,000 people on a newsletter that I'm getting my thoughts into their inboxes every month. They're getting to know me a little bit more. They're a little bit more intimacy. Then I have my podcast where 3,000 or 4,000 people listen to the Sweaty Startup and the Nick Huber Show each week to learn about real estate and small business. Okay, then at the very bottom of the funnel, the very, very bottom is about 50 people every month. And those are people that pay me and my companies to do work. I have eight companies, and they're customers of my companies.
It all starts from hating on purple hair, and then it just moves its way down. So you create a lot of content, write a lot, you do video stuff, you do podcasts. Do you yourself consume a lot of content? Like, are you on Twitter reading stuff?
Yeah, I do. I love following James Clear. I love following Alex Hormozi. I love following the other content creators, because when you read thought-provoking things, I can look, there's no idea that's new. I could sit here and I could be the most revolutionary guest you've ever had, and I'm just regurgitating a bunch of ideas that other people have had, period. Like, there's no new ideas in this world. So what I do is I read the way other entrepreneurs and other business owners and other content creators are writing, and then I'll think of a new way to apply that thought, or it'll spin off a kind of a side thought or a new idea that I had thought about in just a different way, right? So consuming that other content absolutely helps me create more of my own content. It's kind of like a flywheel in that regard.
Mm-hmm. So like, I think it's super funny. I think all the, tweeting stuff, and you can obviously handle it, but you have a lot of people who are like really mad about this stuff, and you actually like get a lot of death threats on Twitter. You get a lot of people up in arms, like posting about you, DMing you. Like, do you just ignore it all?
No, I mean, I would be a liar if I told you that it didn't sometimes, get to me. What I think I can handle it when like the woke idiots in their parents' basements are, telling me that I'm dumb and that I don't know what I'm talking about. I can handle that. Mm-hmm. What I don't love is when somebody that I respect, or somebody that's kind of got a little bit of clout in our community, either the real estate or small business community, starts, bashing me and talking bad about me, which happens a lot. Like, it happens a lot. But look, I mean, one of my superpowers is that I'm secure enough in who I am that I don't give a shit what most people think about me. Okay? Like, there's a small group of people, 10 or 20 people, that mean a lot to me, that I do care about how they think. But I know, and I'm confident enough in myself and my ideas and who I am, that some stranger on the internet talking shit about me is not going to ruin my day, right? So it all kind of goes around and comes around. But I think overall, having the ability to not need approval from any one person is something that can get you pretty far in life, if you're just not afraid of what people think. Because there's a lot of hate in this world, and there's a lot of, and even beyond hate, there's jealousy. Like, jealousy is what hits people closer to home. Like, you're not going to get hate from family and friends and neighbors and people in your community, but you are going to get jealousy. You're going to get jealousy inside of families. You're going to get jealousy inside of friend groups. You're going to have jealousy all over the place, because people are like crabs in a bucket. They see people winning, and over half of people, they celebrate that. They like it. Jesse, I see you making millions of dollars. Guess what? I'm freaking pumped. My buddy's killing it. It's going to benefit all of us. It's a good thing to see people win. There are other people who maybe they haven't been able to win themselves. They're down. They're not hacking it. Life is freaking hard. Let's admit it. And they're having a bad day, and they see people winning, and they're like, shit, that makes me feel worse about myself. That person's winning. I'm not winning. That makes me feel worse. I'm going to reach up like a crab in a bucket, and I'm going to pull that person back down to my level. A lot of people in this world are that way. And if you're insecure or unable to cut those people out, or at least if you can't cut them out, at least not care that they're going to be like that, then you're going to have problems. If you can't, separate those people from you, they're going to bring you back down. It's going to be really hard to escape. But if you surround yourself with people who want to see you win, they're winning themselves, you can do great things.
And like, so most people are just keyboard warriors anyway. They're not going to do anything. Have you had any like encounters in real life of people who like are angry or maybe good, but recognize you?
I get recognized around town quite a bit now. Yeah, which is kind of weird, but it's all good. Yeah, it's all good. They're all like, "Hey, Nick, what's up?" And listen to your podcast or something like that. And I've actually made a couple friends in town that way. But no, I haven't had a bad experience with a hater yet. I'm definitely being a little bit more careful now though, because I have 3 small kids and a lot to lose. So part of me is a little bit scared of how crazy people are.
Yeah. Okay, so kind of shifting to like where you're at now, what's your motivation right now? Like you've made tons of money, built all these businesses up. Like, what's your motivation going forward? You're still super young, so.
I still have some financial goals because I like giving money away. I think the number one way to have a big impact in the world is to get rich and be able to, rally people or your resources to make change happen for the better. I love donating money to things that kind of fit my goals. But I think I'm just really enjoying building teams and creating opportunities for people. Like it sounds silly, but like I want to create millionaires. I want to create a lot of millionaires. That's my goal. Like I have my number that I want to get to, but I know that to do that, I need to make a lot of people wealthy, and I want to give up people opportunities to come along and get rich with me, which is kind of cool.
Do you want, because so a big part of your identity is like, entrepreneur, like started from your moving company, built it up to a massive thing. Do you want your kids to have a lot of money, or to be like, do you want to give them a lot of money?
Yeah, I do. I think the fact that people say like, I don't want to give any money to my kids, that's a cop out. That's basically them saying that I'm not going to do the work to raise kids that are responsible enough to be stewards of this capital. I want to raise kids. I want to raise kids that are good enough people where they can and will be good stewards of capital. And I talk to a lot of wealthy people. I talk to a lot of wealthy people with good kids, and I talk to a lot of people with shitty kids that are entitled assholes. And the difference in the advice that I've gotten is the kids that are successful are the kids that are kind of taught to struggle with grace. If a kid can make poor decisions, and then live with the consequences of their actions, they're not going to be bailed out of jail by their wealthy parent and gotten off the hook. Their parent's not going to step in and get them more minutes on the basketball team. Like, I'm going to teach my kids how to struggle. Because life is freaking hard, right? Life is hard. To be good at life, you have to be able to struggle. I don't care how wealthy you are, from what family you are. It's hard for everybody. So I'm going to teach my kids how to struggle. I'm not going to bail them out. I'm not going to put a bubble around them. I'm going to encourage them to make mistakes. I'm going to encourage them to put themselves out there. And I think if I enable them to make decisions instead of putting my kids in a bubble, I'll be able to have good kids that can be stewards of that capital. Now, I don't know. They're only 3, 5, 1, 3, and 5. So it's too early for me to really say. And if my kids are major fuck ups, then no, I'm not going to hand them a stack of cash, because I think that's a suicide, a death sentence. But I like to think that they're going to be good kids.
And you want a lot more kids, right? You think having kids is a great thing for people to do? Oh
yeah. Do you want kids or no?
Yeah. But
I look at it as a duty to have kids. Yeah, I'm living in a great country at a great time, and full of prosperity and happiness and opportunity. I don't buy into the news, narrative that life's getting worse. I think it's an amazing time to be alive. I think that people are going to do great things, and I'm going to care for my kids and love my kids and teach them how to make decisions and teach them how to be contributing members to society. I think they're going to be able to live great lives, and I want to maximize the number of kids that I bring into the world.
Do you find it distracting ever? That's just like a personal that I'm wondering, because I always think about that. I'm like, I do want kids, but I'm also already so distracted and ADD, and I don't have really many responsibilities. So I'm like, imagine I have kids running around the house. How am I ever going to focus on what I want to do?
Yeah, for me, like my schedule swells to fill the time that's allotted anyway. So like I just make time for my kids, and then everything else comes. It's like how people say, like, give your money first, save your money second, spend what's left. You know what I mean? Like, my kids take this much time, my work takes this much time, and then I got X amount left to play golf.
like the jar with the rocks and the sand and the whatever that. Who do you look up to in business and life? Because I've seen, you know, I guess the last few years I've like really realized that there's levels to this shit, and there's just like everybody wants something, is chasing something, no matter how rich, poor, successful, you know, low you are. Everybody is looking for the next thing. What's kind of who are you looking up to?
I really have a unique perspective here. I'm not looking up to like the well-known titans or the presidents or people in unique situations. I look up to the people with balance. Like I look up to the people who are good parents. They're committed husbands or mother or wives. They have hobbies. They have relationships, and they can find a way to do all those things while doing well in business. It's less about like, hey, this person's a billionaire, I want to be like that person. It's more like, yeah, that person's a billionaire, but they're out of shape and they've been divorced 3 times and their kids don't know who they are. That is not something I'm interested in.
Yeah. So it's like the balance, the perfect balance.
Definitely. I look at life as there's like many foundations and gardens, and you got to water each garden. You got to water your physical health. You got to water your friendships. You got to water your hobbies. You got to water your marriage. You got to water the relationship with your parent, with your kids as parents. And then you got business is just a part of it. So like, if I think about my life and my day-to-day life, business is just a small part of it. Like my kids, my wife, my friends, my hobbies, like all that stuff is important. So I really look up to the folks with balance.
Are you going to continue like the Twitter persona content flywheel starting businesses forever? Or at one point, are you just going to go off the grid and call it a day and chill with your family?
I definitely can see a day where I'm done tweeting and my team is just recycling all my old tweets. Yeah, for sure. It's exhausting.
AI Nick takes over and it just becomes like, all right, man. Well, I think that's the pod. I really appreciate you coming on. It was a good combination of life experience and deep business knowledge. And so I think it's super interesting.
I'm a big fan of your work, and I really appreciate having me on, and you're an excellent interviewer. So it was an easy conversation. You brought the best out of me. So I really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. We'll have you back again.
Let's do it.
Thanks.